I want to move on now to a game I like to play called Choose Between Two. So I'm going to throw some options your
Okay.
way. You got to choose between the two and just to dive in a little bit on the answer there. I think I know the answer to this one just in our conversation so far, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I feel like Star Wars shines on the big screen and Star Trek shines on television.
Hmm.
Now, the last 10 years have complicated that quite a bit, or the last little bit has complicated that a little bit because Star Wars has started to transition in and they don't put out movies anymore, but they're putting out TV shows and some of them are pretty good. And there's things that complicate this idea. But, and you know, I adore the original Star Trek movies. And so it's not fully clean, but the inherent nature of Star Trek as sci-fi at its in its purest form was allegorical storytelling. So these fun episodic adventures, like people ask all the time, if I watch Star Trek, do I need to start at the first episode? If I start at Next Generation, do I have to start at the first episode? The answer is please don't.
Hmm.
Don't watch Encounter at Farpoint if you watch Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'll recommend, episode 50 is the first episode you watch because they're standalone stories that are all fun little adventures. And I think that's what Star Trek does great. And the only reason the Star Trek movies worked great is because they were building off of this foundation of you loved the characters. So then you close out their journey with these more epic tales that are more cinematic. And with that time gap, you could pull that off in a way that I don't think worked as well for Next Generation. It only really worked on one of the Next Generation movies on its same level. And then like the J.J. Abrams movies, that was essentially him turning Star Trek into Star Wars. And
Yeah.
I think there's some enjoyment there. Like in particular, 2009, there's a lot of enjoyment there. But I've heard someone describe they turned Captain Kirk into Maverick from Top Gun, and then
Hmm.
they give it the pacing of Star Wars, and that's what Star Trek 2009 is. And it's a fun piece of entertainment because I like the genre. I don't think it's great Star Trek though. It's a Star Trek shines on television when it does done right, and Star Wars because it's very much intentionally from the beginning. It's the hero's journey. It's timeless mythology translated into this combination of sci-fi and fantasy with its own kind of world building. It's designed to be at its best about the rise and fall of empires. There is, in multiple senses, political aspects to it, but when done right, it's interwoven into the story. And it's big epic stuff that lends itself to one movie every 3 years that is huge and pulls these timeless and broadly accessible themes. And so I think making me choose between the two of them, it's tough because we did this before. Who do we have right here? We've got Captain
Hmm.
Kirk. What do we have on the other side? We have a Star Wars poster. So
Hmm.
you are asking me to choose between my left side and my right side. Um, does my cheating answer count, or do I have to pick between the two?
We'll let the cheating answer stick.
So
Next
and then
one.
you have Rocky behind you, and I have
Yeah.
Rocky right here is the other one right here
Yeah.
next to me. And you have Ghostbusters behind you, and I have a Ghostbuster. And this is a 1980s Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It has stood the test of time.
Yeah, it's funny how some of the toys back in the day can stand the test of time more than the ones I buy for my kids these days would break it like after 1 week. Like the 1980s action toys are kind of like the Volvos of the pop culture world. Next one.
My
Go ahead.
all of my toys. I never got cleaning my office because I'm making a mess. Oh, that didn't work at all. I never got rid of any of my toys, so they're all at my mom's house. And
Hmm.
the only thing that's broken is the rubber band in my GI Joes. So the rubber
Oh, right.
band rots over time, but you can go buy a replacement one. So if I wanted to, you could just unscrew the screw, throw a new rubber band in there, and my GI Joes would still be good. But all those toys, they're still intact at my mom's house. And whenever my kids, and I guess now my son's probably too old to play with them, but that's what he would do. He's go over to my mom's house and play with my toys. And you start thinking, we're getting 10, 15 years away from his kid, their kids
Mm,
playing with my toys, which is really wild to think about.
it is. Next one. Steven Spielberg or James Cameron?
Spielberg on the basis of he's just far more prolific.
Hmm.
If James Cameron had maintained the output level that he had from 1984 to 1997 from then until today, and had the versatility, the diversity that Spielberg had, man, we've got a who knows where I'm landing on this one. But James Cameron had this tremendous 13-year run of just banger after banger, like these are top 10 favorite films of all time everything he put out. And then in the last almost 30 years, he's put out two movies. And I
Yeah.
think they're his two weakest movies. They're tremendous accomplishments. I think they are very good, but I think they're his two least interesting films on a story level. And so for that reason alone, it just Spielberg started 10 years before him and
Hmm.
kept being prolific for 25 years after him.
Yeah.
And when you're Spielberg and you have 1993 and you put out Schindler's List and Jurassic Park in the same year, and a few years later you put out Saving Private Ryan, and that was 20 years into his career. He'd already been making A-plus movies for 20 years when 93 comes around.
Yeah.
And then jump forward 10 years and he's still doing Minority Report and all these other films that just I I don't know who could beat that for me of just.
Yeah.
And I did a video where I was like, what are the someone asked me a question like this, and I list off like 8 movies, Spielberg movies off the top of my head that are from different categories that are the best. And the comments were like, "How did you forget this movie? How did you forget this movie? How did you forget this movie? How did you forget this movie?" And you have like, I'm not particularly big on Minority Report. I think it's a great movie, but I think he just has 10 or 15 movies that are better than that great movie. And
Yeah.
when you go, James Cameron hasn't even made 10 movies. It's just right there. You kind of go, I think you have to go Spielberg because he just was so good for so long. And it feels like his career's dwindling down right now. But I had Fablemans in my top 5 2 years ago. That's when
Mm.
he's winding down. He's just only putting out movies that are fantastic, but they're not as broadly accessible.
Yeah.
Sure, you're in your late 70s and you're still just making great movies for cinephiles. I'll take it. You literally had 35 years where you were cranking out blockbusters that were actually great and changed cinema for 35 years. Am I supposed to give quick answers on these?
No, no, no. You're doing great. I love it. Next one, CGI or practical effects? What would you rather see in a movie when you're watching a film?
I mean, of course, the holistic answer, if you don't have to pick, is that uh, a great blend of the two is the best. Thus, Jurassic Park came out over 30 years ago and looks better than most movies that come out today because that I mean, I'm these days I'm significantly more excited by anything practical than CGI because CGI is so overdone
Hmm.
that the novelty of the spectacle that CGI allows has diminished. And so now it's reverted backwards. The novelty of someone actually going practical with the limitations of that, that's more exciting to me. That's more interesting to me when you have a real thing, a real stunt that has a thrill to it that CGI just doesn't have anymore where that yeah, it's my inclination is just to say practical and even watching older movies that even when there's cheesiness in the costumes or the effects or whatever, there's a novelty to it. Like rewatching the Crow from 30 years ago recently
Hmm.
and watch some of the behind the scenes stuff, and they're talking about how the city is a model in a table and you're flying through this that kind of winds through it, and there's something just off about the whole thing, but that's exactly what makes it interesting, that
Yeah.
that they're not flying through a real city, but it has such a distinct unique look to it because it is this model and that gives it this dream quality that pops in a way that all of these technically better CGI cities that we fly through in movies all the time, they're boring, they're forgettable, they lack that kind of artistic flair or whatever that you get when you're looking at a real thing that I don't know. So I just maybe if we, sometimes I think if you grew up on it, your brain's wired for practical and good CGI, you appreciate it, but overuse of CGI, it's like it's an advanced cartoon.
Yes, and there's a weightlessness to it. It's empty pixels. There's no grounding to it as well, without that
Yeah.
practical has that kind of thing to it.
And
Um,
that's, the classic example of when you do CGI right. Like there's tons of CGI in Top Gun Maverick, but you
mm,
don't see any of it because they put people in jets and they flew real jets, and then they use CGI to remove a cloud or something,
mm,
things like that. So then they're adding a bridge or something like that. So the thing that you're seeing is a real jet really spinning, a real face being pulled backwards. All that really happened, and you're augmenting it with something that's not interesting, a bridge or a tree or something like that. So it feels a little bit more exciting. There's a stunt in um, Baby Driver that a real car drove and did this skid maneuver, and it looks awesome where it's driving behind by dumpsters and cars and stuff, and you realize afterwards that they added the dumpster with CGI.
mm,
But the reason it feels real and it's weighty is because the car really did that. And
mm,
so they added a thing later on, but they really did a stunt. And so it had, yeah, like you said, weightiness to it. It feels like you're seeing a real thing. And as soon as you have a human in front of a green screen and they're blowing a fan in their face, or you're watching a fully CGI, the a classic example, the third act of Black Widow, in
mm,
a movie that has some practical stunts and action that's really cool. And then the final action in the movie is they're on a carrier jet that explodes and they're falling through the sky, having a sword fight, running on debris and flipping all around. And it's like, there's nothing anchored in reality in this. This is a
yeah,
video game fight. Like
yeah,
you lost me with all of this. Just it's too over the top, and that desire to out spectacle everything else, and so that push to make crank everything up to 11 instead of having interesting, great choreography that's not as spectacular, but it's really well done. They just keep going CGI bigger. They're falling from the sky and they're swinging their swords and they smash through a wall and it explodes and then they land on this thing. It swoops all around. It's like, I would have found it much more interesting if you just had an awesome choreographed fight between Taskmaster and two Black Widows.
yeah,
Like two top level martial artists battling against someone that instantly learns their maneuvers. So you have top choreography combined with let's be smart about how do we outthink this person? How do we teach them how we fight, but it's wrong. And so they try and mimic what we were doing, and therefore we can defeat them. You do something like, I mean, I'm just spitballing here and I go, wow, that's a far more interesting and unique thing than just spectacle CGI overload. So
last
practical.
one. Last one. You're at the cinema. What's your go-to snack? Popcorn or candy?
Popcorn all day, every day.
How do you like your
I'm
popcorn?
just a buttery.
Mm,
I guess maybe not too buttery, but like definitely want butter and all. If I don't do this enough, but if I could have two containers and like pour half of it over here, butter
hmm
it, shake, 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 butter this one over here, shake, 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 put it on top, butter like light, proper butter appropriately throughout all of it. It's just tough when you can't normally do that, so you end up like soaking the top and the bottom as dry as can be. But I don't like just as a popcorn, you can get so much more of it. So I want something that I can just do this the whole movie and snack a little bit the whole movie. And you get a little box of candy that costs $20. And so I'm eating one candy every 5 minutes. And that's not satisfying as opposed to like doing this for a whole movie with a whole gigantic tub of popcorn. And then I can take it home and sit there with my dogs and eat the popcorn together. So popcorn all the time. But I like candy too. So just it's that being able to just keep going is the maybe the habitual side to it, the human behavior like side to it that just I want to be able to do that the whole movie.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.